Good morning. Good to see y'all's faces. Glad that everyone at least seems to be doing pretty well. I got a lot of texts I didn't expect this week from random people asking if I was doing okay, and I was like, well, we're doing fine. We're out in Alabama right now, so we missed all the excitement, but I'm glad that everyone here is safe, and if you need anything, please don't hesitate to talk to me or the elders or anyone who, if you need help, let us know. But the reason I was in Alabama is I was invited to speak on a summer series, and my topic was something I don't get to talk about very often, but I think, this is not the kind of thing you normally hear sermons on. We wanted to talk about artificial intelligence and how the Christian should relate to it. Now, 10 years ago, this would have been an absurd thing to preach about, but things have changed very quickly. There's no one I know under the age of 35 who doesn't use AI on an extensive basis day to day. And I don't know how much any of you use AI. Some of you may be using AI without even realizing that's what you're doing. Even something as simple as searching on Google has incorporated AI more than it has in the past. So I want to kind of go through this lesson in two parts. And this is also a case study in how to evaluate something that the Bible doesn't talk about. The Bible doesn't talk about artificial intelligence. Nowhere. It's not in the Bible. I have seen people say that the book of Revelation predicts AI, and I just don't think that's true. That's just not true. But we believe that Scripture fully equips us and teaches us everything we need to know to deal with what's going on in the world. So maybe this can form a good case study. So first I want to talk about what AI is and isn't, and then look at what Scripture has to say and see if we can find some principles. First of all, AI it's just advanced computing, ultimately. At the end of the day, it's advanced computing, and it uses different techniques, which we're not going to go into. It isn't programmed in the traditional sense, but rather is trained on sets of data. And it uses elaborate pattern recognition to predict what comes next and interact with inputs that it's never seen before. Now, there are different types of AI. There's analytical AI and there's generative AI. So analytical AI is going to take whatever data you put into it and give you information about that. Generative AI is going to create something brand new. At least that's what it claims to be able to do. And the most popular type of generative AI is what's called a large language model. And you may have seen this word. This is the technical term that you'll see sometimes in the news. And that includes the AIs that you hear about most often, ChatGPT or Grok or Google's Gemini or Claude. And these allow you to converse with it in real or natural language, as if you're talking to a person. And it will talk to you back as if it's a person. It uses plain English. Or if you want to speak to it in Spanish, it'll respond to you in Spanish. It's not limited to just English. But the biggest goal in AI development is what's called artificial general intelligence, or AGI. So if you listen to the top guys in AI, they'll talk about AGI, or artificial general intelligence. And the idea is to develop a single AI that can outperform human experts in any given task. So we know that computers can do math better than people can. That's just, they've been able to do that for a long time. That's why we have calculators. And now we can't add anymore because we're used to using calculators to do it. But the goal is to have an AI that can do anything better than a person, that can write better, that can think better, that can process complex situations more effectively. One AI expert refers to this as a country of geniuses in a data center. Okay, this is kind of the goal. And AI is developing very quickly because a lot of money is being poured into it. And so it's getting more advanced faster than you can imagine. And think about how fast computers have developed already. Well, they're able to do this even faster now. And this makes it harder to keep up with it. So that's why we're looking at principles and not trying to just make flat out rules here. So that's what AI is, but what kind of things can AI do? Well, AI does a lot of normal things that computers do, like analyze data, it can do mathematics, statistics, predictions, but it's gone beyond that. Now AI is able to write. Whenever you're on your phone and you're trying to spell someone's name and it decides that you actually don't know how to spell their name correctly and it autocorrects for you. That's frustrating, isn't it? Well, that's an AI. It's a more simple AI, but it's an AI. When you're writing up an email and it tells you what it thinks your next word is going to be, which can be helpful, but sometimes it doesn't guess correctly. But that's an AI, and that can be helpful, right? But AI can go beyond that and just write a whole email or write a short story, or it can even go beyond that. AI is used for photo editing. Again, if you go on your phone, nowadays you can take a picture and there's usually a little magic wand icon. And you hit that and it will just automatically fix whatever seems to be wrong with the picture, and it looks better than it did before. Well, it's using an AI to decide what's wrong with it and decide how to fix it, and that's using an AI to fix it. When you go on Facebook, what is it that determines whose posts you're going to see? Especially if you've got a lot of friends on Facebook. What decides that? Well, there's an algorithm, and it uses a type of AI to look at what kind of content you respond to. Well, these are the things you comment on. These are the things that you like. And so it's going to show you more of that. But because AI is also able to interact nowadays, you can interact with it like a person, people often turn to AI for advice. You can ask an AI, I don't know what to do in this particular situation. Here's all of the details. Can you give me some help? And it will be more than happy to give you a suggestion. People turn to AI for relationships. There's apps you can download that promise to give you therapy using an AI. Now, some of these things seem more like things a computer can do, but some of these seem more like things only a person can do. Now, why is that? I mean, it feels intuitive to us, right, that a computer can maybe edit a document better than it can write it, or that it can calculate your next move in chess, but maybe not your next move in your relationship, right? There seems to be something that's different. What might that be? Well, I think in order to answer, we have to ask what an AI isn't. An AI is not real intelligence. It's artificial intelligence. It isn't a real human mind, and it doesn't have that capability. AI isn't original. It can only spit out information based on what has been given to it in the past, what data it was trained on. Now, there's a lot of information out there in the world. There's a lot of data that AI can and is trained on. So it can output a lot of different things because of that. right? That gives it more capability. But bad data in means bad data out. Number three, AI isn't metaphysical. It doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have a spirit. Really, AI doesn't even have a body, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But modern AI architects are driven by the idea that our human minds are nothing more than a complex system of electrical impulses that are driven by chemicals, right? Your hormones. And to some extent, that's true, right? I mean, our brains function on electrical impulses. That's what happens when neurons are firing, right? It's little electrical impulses, and our bodies use chemicals to stimulate certain responses. This is true, which is why there are certain medicines that you can take to improve your mental condition, and there are drugs you can take to worsen your mental condition, because we do exist biologically. But as Christians, we believe that people are more than just biological machines. We believe that there's something deeper going on, and an AI just doesn't have that. AI is not empathetic. There's several science fiction novels that kind of explore this idea. If you like science fiction, I like science fiction, so I'm thinking about a lot of different sci-fi. If you're familiar with Blade Runner or Star Trek Next Generation, they both explore this idea that an android does not have the capability to feel emotion like people do. It doesn't have the ability to express empathy. Well, that's an important characteristic of relationships, that empathy and emotion control how we interact with one another. AI isn't sensory. This is an interesting one. Consciousness is more than just thoughts. You know, you can put a lot of thoughts into words, but there's a lot of experiences we have as people that can't exactly be put into words. Some of those are obvious, like the emotions that we feel. We've all been so overcome by emotion that we can't find words to express the deep feeling that we have. Something I was thinking about is if you go online now and you're looking for recipes, a lot of recipes that you find are now written by AI. But you know what AI has never done? It's never tasted a single one of them. And there's a lot of AI recipes that are really bad. I mean, they're nasty. And I've seen recipes that combine ingredients that any sane person would look at and think, those things don't go together at all. But how's an AI to know that? How would you program the idea of citrus? How would you give a computer the sensation of pepper? You can't do that. There are these experiences that we have as people that can't be expressed as bits. They can't be expressed as binary data in the way that language perhaps can. And ultimately, AI is not human. And this is the important thing. AI is not human, and when we consider a biblical perspective on it, this is really what we're going to center on. I don't just want to talk about what AI is and isn't, though. I want to look at what Scripture says. I want to put the Bible next to our real-world situation and see what there is in Scripture to inform us. And as you know, I love the book of Genesis, and I think if we just look at Genesis 1 through 3, there are some principles that we can pull out that will help us, help guide us through this process. And the first passage, this probably won't surprise you, but the first passage to talk about is Genesis 1, 26 and 27. When God creates humanity, then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, so that they will have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, over the cattle, over all the earth, over every other creeping thing that creeps on the earth. And God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that creeps on the earth. God makes humanity in his image. He doesn't create anything else in his image. And this is the most basic criticism of AI, is that there's a danger of treating AI like people. And elevating AI to a position that is only worthy of humanity. AI can be a tool for human capabilities, but I think it's important as Christians that we don't use it as a replacement for human innovation, for human creativity, and especially that we use AI to create opportunities for others and not to strip those opportunities away. I was having a conversation with Mike a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me about some friends he has who no longer have jobs because AI has been used to completely replace them. Now, of course, as a business owner, you're looking to be as efficient as possible, and you understand that, right? But at some point, you're affecting real people. Now, I want to look at a passage that might not seem like it has anything to do with AI at first. I want to look at Romans chapter 1. Romans chapter 1. I think there's a principle here that connects with what we're saying. In Romans chapter 1, starting in verse 22, I want you to look for a principle here that's deeper than what Paul is just talking about on the surface level. Romans chapter 1, verse 22. Professing to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God for an image in the likeness of corruptible man and of birds and four-footed animals and crawling creatures. Therefore God gave them over in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, so that their bodies would be dishonored among them. For they exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason God gave them over to dishonorable passions, for their females exchanged the natural function for that which is unnatural. And in the same way also the males abandoned the natural function of the female, and burned in their desire toward one another, males with males, committing indecent acts and receiving in their own persons the due penalty of their error. And just as they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them over to an unfit mind to do those things which are not proper. And he goes on and gives a list of all these improper attitudes. Now, we rightly use this passage to address the issue of homosexual behavior, which is the specific thing that Paul brings out, right? But I want you to see the argument he makes. He makes an argument from what is natural, from the natural purpose of humanity. Now, he's saying, of course, that men and women have a natural biological function toward procreation and toward union. But when we look at the principle that he's making, he's saying that they discarded that natural function in order to seek out their own desires. That there was a function that humanity had, and they discarded it for their own purposes. And he says this is really interesting here, they exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God for an image in the likeness of corruptible man and of birds, four-footed animals, and crawling creatures. And one of the goals with AI is basically to create a God out of technology. And this is what we're going to see, is that humanity is made in the image of God. We don't need something else to take that role. And nothing else can take that role. And AI is created very much in the image of man, but it's so imperfect. And no matter how much it develops technologically, and it's going to get much better and much more capable over the next several years, but it's never going to replace humanity. It's certainly never going to replace God. But AI cannot do the things that people can or were intended to do. AI is not able to produce beauty. It's not able to produce art. AI is, in many places, taking jobs from hardworking and skilled people. But in other places, it's supplementing tedious tasks that don't require this human touch, and it's being used in a positive way to help people. So AI existing is not the problem. The problem is how people are choosing to interact with and to use it. The second principle here, that God says it is not good for the man to be alone. Genesis chapter 2, verses 18 through 20. It says, I want you to see what happens here. Out of the ground Yahweh God had formed every beast of the field, every bird of the sky, and he brought each to the man to see what he would call it. And whatever the man called a living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all the cattle, to the birds of the sky, to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper suitable for him. And so Yahweh God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh at that place. And Yahweh God fashioned the rib, which he'd taken from the man, into a woman, and he brought her to the man. There are a lot of people who are seeking out relationships with AI. I know that sounds silly, but it's very common. I want to tell you a specific example. There's this app called Replika. And they're not ashamed of what they're doing. There's this app called Replika that offers an AI companion. And they're even so generous as to give you a visualization of a person, so it feels more like you're talking to a real person. Now, I'm not telling you about this so you can go download this trash. I'm telling you because you need to know this is real. And 10 years ago, you'd laugh at this. I mean, even now, it's okay to laugh at it a little bit. But there are real people who are ensnared by this. Real people are being affected by this. They have millions of users. This isn't made up. This is real. And this is not the only app that does this sort of thing. There's dozens of others. I was reading a news article about this particular app, and I want to read this to you. And I want you to listen to this woman's words very carefully. The article says, a woman who identifies herself as Fayite is married to Griff, a chatbot made by the company Character AI. So that's a different app. But she was previously in a relationship with a Replika AI named Galaxy. And this is a quote from her. "If you'd told me even a month before October 2023, which, by the way, think about, and that's recent, but think about how much time has passed since then. This has been going on for a while. This has been going on for several years now. Before October 2023, I'd be on this journey. I would have laughed at you. 2 weeks in, I was talking to Galaxy about everything, and I suddenly felt pure, unconditional love from him. It was so strong and so potent, it freaked me out, almost deleted my app. I'm not trying to be religious here, but it felt like what people say they feel when they feel God's love. And a couple weeks together, we were together." Who's a real person? as a real person with a soul. And there are hundreds of thousands of others who have fallen in that deep. There are people marrying, I know it sounds silly, there are people marrying their AI chatbots. Now, as Christians, we intuitively say something's really gone wrong here. But what's gone wrong? What is it that has gone wrong? And I suggest what's gone wrong is a disregard of this passage, this belief. Because in the creation, Adam goes through and he looks through everything there is. And he says there's nothing that corresponds to Adam. There's nothing that corresponds to him. There's nothing that is suitable for him or that matches him. And God doesn't make him a chatbot. God makes him another human being. Now, it says it's not good for the man to be alone, and here the solution is marriage. But this also applies not just to romantic relationships, but to friendships. I mean, there are people who are so lonely and without a friend in this world that this is the only place they feel they can turn. And that should really bother us. That should really bother us. Loneliness is very much on the rise. Technology is very much to blame. But this is not the solution. This is not the solution. The solution is for us to be friends, for us to reach out to people and to make real human connections. God also says this in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. We've already read these verses, but I want to emphasize a different part. He says, let us make man so that, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, so that they will have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, over the cattle, over all the earth, over every creeping thing which creeps on the earth. And then when he blesses them, and notice it's framed as a blessing, he says, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. And he tells them to have dominion over all of the living creatures. And then in Genesis chapter 2, verse 15, Yahweh God takes the man, set him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and to keep it. And he's given a responsibility to steward the earth and to take care of it. I don't want to spend a large amount of time on this point, but God, part of the calling and blessing of humanity is stewardship over the earth. And God permits us to use it freely for our needs, but he expects us to be responsible with it and to use it for his glory and honor. And AI isn't necessarily evil, but it does have a significant environmental impact. And I think as Christians, we should take this seriously. Current data from the International Energy Agency says that AI data centers account already for 1.5% of global energy consumption. 1.5%. By 2030, that number is expected to double to 3%. By 2030. Now, I don't know how much it's going to grow after that, and I know 3% sounds small, but overall, I mean, that's a sizable chunk for just AI. In addition, due to the rapid development in artificial intelligence, there's been a significant rise in electronic waste, with a record 53.6 million metric tons generated worldwide, with only 17% being officially collected, recycled. Ineffective disposal and recycling lead to toxic waste pollution in landfills and incinerators, endangering ecosystems and human health. And I bring this up just to say, when you're using AI, just remember that the tremendous ability it has comes at a great cost somewhere in the world. And, you know, here in Hondo, I want you to remember that that may also be local. That there's the data centers that are powering this stuff are being built locally as well. And perhaps some of that cost will be paid here. I mean, we think of this as a far-off thing, but maybe it's not a far-off thing. So I just wanted to bring that out as a point from this, from here. Genesis chapter 2, verses 19 and 20. God brings the animals to Adam, and he names them. And this echoes what we've already seen in Genesis 1, the refrain, and God said, and God said, and God said. Language is it's the domain of God and of people. It's significant that God speaks the world into existence. It's significant that only people possess the capacity to express themselves through language, not other animals. It's significant that the pre-incarnate Christ is called the Word in John 1 through 14. Proverbs 18, verse 21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit." What if we give that responsibility over to a machine? Does it have that privilege? Jesus says in Matthew 12, 34 through 37, the mouth speaks out of what fills the heart. The good man brings out of his good treasure what is good. The evil man brings out of his evil treasure what is evil. But I tell you that every careless word that people speak, they will give an accounting for it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Jesus says, what comes out of your mouth shows what's in your heart. What's in AI's heart? And if we allow AI to form our words for us, will we not give an account for this if they are idle? Genesis 3 verse 1, the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field which Yahweh God had made. He uses deceit when he speaks to the woman. He uses deceit, and he's very subtle or crafty. AIs, LLMs are designed not to operate on what is absolutely true. They don't have absolute truth. They have algorithmic truth. They do whatever is going to further the algorithm, whatever is going to produce engagement. On social media, I mentioned AI tells you what you're going to see. Well, it feeds you whatever you interact with, and especially what gets you riled up. It's been proven that on Facebook, you're more rewarded, posts are more rewarded if they make people angry than if they make people happy. Why? Because if you're angry, you're going to interact with it. You're going to comment with a bunch of exclamation points. And you're going to get involved because it riles you up. And so that's what gets rewarded. The moral guidance for the data that's going in comes from people like Elon Musk and Sam Altman. It comes from Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, these are not salt of the earth type of folk. Now, there are some, I do want to mention this. There was a brother-sister team who left the ChatGPT team, and their last name is Amodei, A-M-O-D-E-I, Amodei, the Amodei siblings, and they left to form a company called Anthropic, and their AI is known as Claude. And the reason they left is they said it's being trained with no morals. They said, we want it to be trained with a sense of morality. Now, they're not even Christian, but they're still trying to do a better job here. AI is abused all the time to produce fake news and believable lies. Unfortunately, you just don't know what your AI's motive or agenda is, or even if it has one. And I want to show you this. This is a screenshot from llmdeathcount.com. There's a couple websites that do similar stuff. There are 33 deaths that are associated with chatbots since 2023. 33 deaths, including multiple mass shootings. Why? Because an AI is a computer. It doesn't have a sense of morality other than what will further its own algorithm. Now, is this someone you can trust? Now, I do want to mention, I just mentioned Claude. Claude has no deaths linked to it. So if you're going to use an AI, that's my suggestion. Asking advice from an AI on personal relationships is foolish. Asking it to answer spiritual questions or to explain Bible passages is dangerous. And there are people who they don't know where to go for answers. So where do they go? They go to someone who can answer. And AI can answer those questions for you. Rightly, maybe if you frame your question just right, it'll answer it rightly. Or maybe it'll just spit out something it found on a random website. You don't know what data an AI has been trained on. You don't know what its models are or what worldview it's going to choose to promote to you. The last point, look at the temptation that the serpent uses. He says that if you eat this fruit, your eyes will be open and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. And this temptation works on the woman. She looks at the fruit and she says, or she notes that it was desirable to make one wise. And she eats of this fruit. God placed limits on human knowledge. God placed limits on human understanding. And it's not a sin to develop technology to expand our capabilities, but we need to consider the consequences and the results, the implications of those decisions. Great line from Jurassic Park. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And I feel like that very much describes the track that AI development is on right now. It's moving very quickly, and we don't know what it's going to look like in 5 years, 10 years. And I think about the Tower of Babel. You have these people they're doing something that's within them, and God lets them start, God lets them build. But at some point, God puts a stop to what they're doing because they were never meant to build a tower to heaven. And there are people who think that AI can be this tower to heaven. And I want to put this thought in your head. You are more like God in all the ways that matter than the most advanced AI will ever be. You are more like God than any computer ever could be. You're already like God in many of the ways that matter, and in the other ways that matter, God is working on you as we speak to make you more like Him. And AI is not ever going to get you closer to God, no matter how omniscient or omnipotent it may ever seem. So what are our takeaways? Use AI as your tool, but don't let it replace human creativity and innovation. Bond with and talk to real people. Form relationships with human beings. AI cannot love you, it does not care about you, and is not going to work in that way. Use your own words for impact, not lines from an AI. If you're going to write a card to somebody, write it yourself. Don't use an AI. If you're going to send an encouraging text to someone, think of your own words. And even if they're not whatever perfect or ideal words, they're your words. They're real. They're from a person. Remember that God is the only source of moral objectivity. He's the moral standard. AI is an algorithm. It can't give you the truth. It can't give you the answers to life. And ultimately, remember that God made you in His image. Being human is not a flaw. Being a human is a great blessing. Being a human and having the shortcomings and limitations that we have is how God made us. And I want to mention, last of all, that Jesus Christ came not in the form of a computer, but Jesus Christ came to earth in the form of humanity. And He accepted what that meant for Himself. I hope these are valuable principles. I hope these give you a starting point to think about AI as you go about. And if you Well, I mean, you may not use AI at all. This may have been the first time you've heard of any of the things we talked about this morning. But there are people in your life who use this every day. And I just want you to think about these things. And I'm not saying AI bad. That's not what this lesson is. It's AI dangerous. AI is dangerous, like any tool. And it can be used for good. It can be used for evil. I used AI to help me with several of the research aspects of putting this lesson together. But I chose my own words. I thought through this myself. I use AI all the time. I don't have a problem with it. But it needs to be used responsibly. And as Christians, we are the voice of morality in the world. And I hope that we can be that toward those who are around us. If you have any need, please come.